This is A Strategist, episode 1873. My name is Zain Velji. With me, as always, Shannon Phillips and Stephen Carter. What's going on? I'm sitting on a hotel bed.
Yeah, you know how I sent you a note just before you left to go to Toronto? I said, yes. Don't forget your microphone.
Well, okay, so there's two stories here. Number one. Okay. I only spend a certain amount on hotel rooms, and whatever that gets me, that gets me. In this case, it gets me no desk and sitting on a bed. Number two. I forgot that they have something called the ultra basic fare, Carter, and I have accidentally booked that on my trip, which has meant that I had no room for the microphone. I told you I forgot. It wasn't that I forgot. It was a choice between underwear and socks or the microphone at this point. Let me show you what I'm traveling with. It's sitting over there. It's a backpack. Okay. Now, could I have paid extra for the carry-on? No. Turns out I couldn't have. That's actually not a thing they let you do. Airlines are fucking nuts, Carter. That's all I'm saying.
Well, okay. Yeah, I'm guessing you were out there on Flair Airlines.
It was not. At least Flair would treat me better as a longtime sponsor of the show, in which the ghost of Corey Hogan is now saying not a sponsor.
Yeah.
Not a sponsor.
Very sad. Not a sponsor. Would you say that sadly? It's almost
wistfully,
like...
Yeah,
we just have to be sad about it now.
That was not the tone we wanted. Oh. Shannon, what's going on? What are you up to?
Oh, I'm in Lethbridge, which is nice. I'm never home these days, but I'm home today. And one of my kids, I hope there's no noise in the background, just came in from his rifle safety course, because that's the kind of operation we're running around here.
Sounds very Lethbridge.
Yeah,
very Lethbridge.
Yeah.
Getting ready he gets ready for the Civil War.
Yeah, even the New Democrats are heavily armed, yes.
Well, your southern locale is probably one of the first municipalities to be attacked as the Americans rush up. So it's pretty strategic. I like it. That combined with Carter's bunker planning.
Oh, I've got it all worked out. I have to redo everything, though. I got to make sure that everything's up to snuff.
Well, can't that mean you have to buy Canadian now?
No, I've invited Shannon to come along, but I haven't invited you still. So
it's fine.
Don't invite me. I'm very useless. I have very few post-apocalyptic skills. I think you could probably do better, Carter. What would I be doing? I don't know, crocheting in the corner. Like I'm no good to you there.
Someone needs to crochet.
Don't fucking invite me. I'd rather be doing what I love, which is traveling this country on the ultra basic fare, backpack to backpack. It's like backpacking Europe, except not even nearly as enjoyable. Let's move it on to our first segment. Kumbaya, my lord. Shannon, it is all love. The FMMM is here.
Yeah.
The first ministers' meeting has concluded, at least the first tranche of the conversations that are public in Saskatoon, and it is all love. Doug Ford coming out and saying that this is the best meeting that they've had in years. Oh, it doesn't matter that there's no guarantees and no specific projects on the list, even though, and despite Shannon, we were promised a list. Talk to me about what your takeaway here is, at least from the communication you see from the premiers, that you see from the prime minister. There was a high bar here. Was the high bar met?
Yes. The dividing line in Canadian politics, the axis of disagreement is federalism, right? Danielle Smith can't do politics of grievance on specific groups. Even the furthest reaches of the right in this country can't exploit the politics of grievance to other specific groups of people, recently arrived immigrants or anyone else. It doesn't fly in Canadian politics. What flies is othering on the basis of region. That is what Canada is built on. And any time that you can rise above that, even for a moment, even to set the tone or the agenda of a government and, in a honeymoon phase, that is a good day. And you could tell that no a premier saw political advantage in bursting that bubble today. When you watched them all parade out, doing their little power and politics hits and their little press conferences, every single one of them were, effusive and kind of ready to give the federal government a chance. It doesn't matter that there's no specific list. As a matter of public policy, as a matter of the public interest, I'm glad there isn't a specific list because I'm looking for some due diligence here. Not to get too far down the rabbit hole of the policy aspects of this, but I mean, I don't want people, signing off on a bunch of white elephants and spending a bunch of money where they shouldn't on projects that may or may not have, social or political support as well as, support from the financial side. So I think this was an unmitigated success, a rare one in Canadian politics, and we should take those wins where we can get them.
Carter, same question to you, and then I've got a follow-up around, are we absorbing as a Canadian public any of this, and what that can do, what that can actually mean for Carney's chances of telling a winning story, even though he's having winning meetings and winning projects? So I'm assuming your answer, but give it to me rather than me assuming it. Did this meet the bar today?
Well, I think that it met the bar from the expectations of people who pay attention. Shannon's happy. And that's all that I can really, I mean, as long as Shannon's happy, then the people who pay attention are happy. That's all we can ask for. But the Gen Pop, we don't pay attention anymore. We've talked a lot about the downfall of traditional media. We've talked a lot more about the downfall of social media in the last few years. Who exactly is following this? Who's paying attention at this stage, and what impact is going to have? Because it's going to have to be more than one weekend. Or 1 week, right? It's going to have to be a sustained push from this government and really sustained communication structures for the better part of a year before people are really going to start to grab onto it. Shannon's proclamation that federalism as our last bone to pick is done. I mean, she's a little optimistic. I think that, we're still going to be able to, Danielle Smith will still find a way to blame Mark Carney for everything that goes wrong.
Oh, I'm not saying that it's not, that it's gone.
Oh, yeah, that's what you said. That's what you said, Shannon.
It's absolutely
that's exactly
not what I
you
said.
No, I was listening.
Carter,
I was
continuing
paying attention.
the tradition of being wrong about a lot of things. But no, for sure, it is gone, or it is. We've got some grace today, I would say. It's coming back. You already heard Danielle Smith sort of saying it is, what was it? Necessary but not sufficient. Precondition, right?
Shannon, talk to me about the question Carter refuses to answer because he probably isn't up to it, which is, what is the cost of us not absorbing everything Carney is doing? He's trying to tell a very specific story as an extension of the election around who the protagonists are, why we're doing what we're doing, and who the antagonists are. And does this fit that storyline for you? And is this happening too fast, perhaps, for the general public to consume all of this, to understand what's happening here, why we're doing certain things? Or do you think they're just providing him grace to do whatever for however long, undetermined amount of time?
Well, the public wants economic response to an economic threat. So in as much as they're getting anything, and stuff like this does punch through, right? It's not like the usual cut and thread of politics of what's going on in the House or question period or what have you. It's a much different type of media story, right? Because it involves all of the premiers, and if anything punches through, it's that Carney wants to build stuff, which is actually kind of what he said. Right. And if you were to go out and ask man on the street, that's very likely what they would say. Oh, I guess he wants to build stuff. We'll see how it goes. Right. That's what you get from your average Albertan, I'm quite certain. So in that sense, job done on this day. Going forward, the price, though, to your actual question, the price that gets paid going forward is that there's a lot of politics between here and there in terms of whatever projects we're talking about, whatever regulatory processes we're pulling out of the way with, whatever legislation he ends up tabling, and the extent to which people aren't kind of understanding that there are trade-offs there is the extent that the dragons are just around the corner, right? Of the changing up the environmental rules, of even circumventing some of our Section 35 responsibilities. I don't know how they're going to do that, but I'm talking about the Indigenous consultation pieces. Some of this is coming, and there are conflicts to come. And if the public's not kind of tracking the drumbeat on this, all of a sudden we're going to be into conflicts around specific proposals, projects in specific geographic spaces, and the public's not going to have a lot of context for that.
Carter, you're having a call tonight with Andrew Scheer and Pierre Poilievre, because of course they've got two people leading that universe now. And they're saying, okay, we're not jumping in today. Doesn't seem right. None of the premiers are jumping in today. This is not something to oppose. But Carter, help us find the soft tissue here between what Carney's putting out right now and where this could go. Help us see around the corner. Shannon's saying here that this is eventually going to fray. Danielle's going to do her thing. Help us see around the corner. What opportunities exist for us to get ourselves into the narrative, into the story. This is an economic file that historically conservatives have been leading. He's stealing our ideas. Yes, he's on a honeymoon phase, but we need to be relevant. What would you tell them right now?
What I would tell them right now is that you need to take a little bit of time. The honeymoon is going to come off on this relatively quickly. When I say a little bit of time, I'm thinking until Thursday. Today is Monday night. Everything shifts in 24, 48, 72 hours. These are the timelines of our attention span. So in 72 hours, we'll be able to get out from under this and start talking about how this is too little, too late. Doug Ford is already, signed up for how great everything is, but that doesn't mean it's great for the people of Canada. It might be great for the people of Ontario. It might be good for the people in Eastern Canada. But where's the West? And the West is out of town, not paying attention, and still primarily interested in grievance politics.
Well, let me ask you the question this way, because I'm glad you mentioned 72 hours as a relatively arbitrary period of time, but I think an important one between now and Thursday. How does Carney then flash freeze the sentiment of today? Kumbaya, love, Doug Ford called him Santa Claus today. And how does he extend the shelf life on that? How are you, if you're Mark Carney, take today, package it, and keep doling it out, at least that vibe and feeling, for as long as you can?
Break it into as many little parts as humanly possible and dole out those little parts in measurable increments across the longest possible timeline.
What could that look like?
It's interesting. I wrote a policy over the weekend. I didn't write a policy. I helped edit a policy. And the policy has 5 big points, and each of those 5 big points has 5 little points. So that's 25 individual points that we can roll out over the course of a campaign. This needs to be approached in the exact same fashion. Each one of these projects is actually 25 little points. 25 little points rolled out over 25 weeks gives you a communication strategy, especially when you couple that with 2 projects and a couple of, and some budget initiatives, 2 projects and some social services initiatives. There's a lot of things that the Trudeau government, we must remember. The staggering complaint that we had about the Trudeau government was that they were awful at communications. We made that complaint for what? 7 years at minimum?
At least 7 years.
At least 7 years we've made now what we're seeing is someone who has the ability to communicate in the first instance. The question now is, will Mark Carney and his government be able to communicate into the 25th instance? And that's what I'm be interested to see over the course of the next couple of months.
Shannon, same question for you. How does he flash freeze and extend the honeymoon, of course, but extend the feelings from today around coordination, working together for as long as possible?
Well, some of it has to be real, right? And, show results is something that, is always the communication as advice. But what does that look like when you're, you can't be just kind of standing behind the podium is prison, right? Because that was part of the knock on Trudeau is they would do like straight podium politics. It was all driving towards the announcement, and there was nothing happening behind that announcement or as a knock on to it, right? And oftentimes they were announcing policies or initiatives that took forever to kind of roll out. You never found out what actually happened to them, or they were so chicken scratch. There were too many sub bullets to the bullet. That it was, just some minister standing up talking about $750,000 for a sewer pipe, right? Like it didn't really connect into what people expect their government to be doing. So, you need to find that balance. I would say that there are some projects that are more ready to go than others. I heard Susan Holt, for example, Premier of New Brunswick, talking about the Port of St. John. That sounded a lot more, who knows, but it sounded a lot more ready to go than, as yet notional east-west linear infrastructure for either bitumen or even natural gas. She was saying it was $275 million project. Well, that's a lot less than, what I have heard oil pipelines
tens of billions.
Churchill to be 50 billion or more, right? And for sure it would be more. This is the same group of people that valued TMX at 8 and became 34. for. So the point here is that they do need to be able to demonstrate that. And then the other thing they need to do, and this is also to the point about Poilievre and that other guy, the American, Scheer, is unemployment, right, in Southern Ontario in particular. Those numbers are ticking up. People are feeling like there have been major layoffs happening. And so if I were Poilievre, I would be pivoting to that tale of woe fairly soon to kind of get off the big nation building stuff where you're not going to compete and onto a terrain where you can. And start to shore up some of those private sector unionized workers, some of those seats that they won Kitchener elsewhere in Southern Ontario. So that's for them. But if I was Carney, I would also be pivoting a little bit from the clouds down to the ground to actually demonstrate no, we're still in a crisis here, people. And I am the man for the crisis. I'm not just the man for the dreams on how to get out of it, but how to deal with people's material reality right here, right now.
I think that's such an important point, right? Around the guy who could take opportunity of the moment to get things we haven't been able to get done for a long time on a generational level, while also somehow being the same guy that's able to be acutely, responsive to the moment in people's jobs. Can we talk about the list for a second?
Sure.
And Carter, can I start with you? Because I think I've got Shannon's take already around, at least from a policy perspective. Shannon, to be fair with you, I want to come back to you on this in a sec. The political cost to Carney for not having a concrete list. Shannon talked to me about the policy cost and what the prudent thing would be to do from a policy perspective. But the political cost for Carney, who promised a list, but we didn't get a list today.
As soon as you see a list,
which project?
Yeah, as soon as you see a list, people are going to start complaining. My project's not on the list. That project shouldn't be on the list. This project's going to destroy the environment. This project's going to save the environment. I mean, everything that happens is going to wind up being complained about. So the longer you can delay having a list, the better off you actually are. And it's right now, it's probably beneficial to work with the premiers as though there is no list. There is no end. There is no beginning. It is an open field for you and the premiers to working with. I'm assuming these projects are mostly going to be partnerships. I don't think that they should be, the federal government just arriving with a bulldozer and making shit happen. I think that these are going to be partnerships with the provinces. I think that there'll be lots of different things to work out, lots of different priorities. Shannon mentions the Port of St. John. Well, that's one priority in one province. I mean, how do you weigh against all of the priorities across the country against one another? I mean, this list is going to be really long and really hard to prioritize. And sometimes the priorities might come down to who's willing to partner, who's willing to take X number of dollars and turn it into X times 3. That's going to be very, very much interesting.
Shannon, the political cost for not having a list today, even though one was promised to us.
I think it's better. And to this point about, having a bit of a drumbeat of announcements, there's nothing bigger than, we've got another nation building project, right? And you can then keep the drumbeat alive. I think that's a really important piece. And to Carter's point, I mean, as soon as you sort of show your cards, that's when the lawyers get to work. And then you get conflict, right? And he doesn't want that right now. He doesn't have that. He had one of the most rare days in Canadian politics today when he didn't have that. So he's going to want more of that.
I agree with you in terms of the rarity of the day. So, but with your two minds though, help me help Carney when he has to release that list, in the sense of what does it look like? Is it just kind of like the school gymnasium coach, or like the drama auditions, just like putting it on the corkboard, here are the 10 people who made the cut? Is it the first of every month he announces a nation building project? Is it one project at a time? Is it
I think
two?
It's one at a time, one or two, right? And
jump in. Help me graph this.
We've done the due diligence. These ones are ready to rock and roll. Off we go. And more to come. He said as much today in his presser. He said, this is an ongoing process. It's not like, they've sent in their list and now the provinces and now there's a gate that comes down or something. And that was his phrasing. So there will be more. Provinces should act that way, and they should continue. They should be doing their due diligence. I have seen some stuff out there that makes my eyebrows go up a little bit. And there's a lot of people that are just seeing sugar plum fairies and dropping free money bags, and that is not good for Canadians. And there are very few PMs that I would trust to actually, want to do some due diligence on this. A former central banker, I mean, even the lefty in me is kind of glad for that due diligence on this stuff. But I would just be moving it. I think they will have to, by necessity, move them out one or two at a time. But that's exactly what they should do.
You think that's also, just to get your take clear on this, you think that's also the optimal political thing to do?
Absolutely.
Carter, where are you at with this?
Totally. I think as soon as you throw up a list that has a finite end, people are going to lose their shit. The beauty of one at a time is that there's no finite end.
Rolling admissions,
right?
Rolling admissions.
Right. There's another one just down the road. And maybe there comes a time when you have to say, we're all done, right? But we're all done. It could happen in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. It really depends on the economy. It depends on what the size and scope of these investments look like, how they're financed, and how other governments are responding to them. But at the end of the day, one more coming down. Don't worry, your project's next is what I want you to think, Zain. I want you to think, don't worry, your project's next. So if you've got this, if you're really excited for high-speed rail in Alberta, it could be next. It could be the next nation-building project that's going to be built right after, high-speed rail in Eastern Canada.
Right. Talk to me about two things here. Carter, what would demonstrate a quick win for him? There's obviously going to be strategy in choosing what's the first couple of things, right? So if you guys are both whispering into Carney's ear around how you choose the first couple of things, policy-wise, for sure, but also strategy-wise, do they need to be cheap? Do they need to be quick turnaround? Do they need to be geographic focused? How does he communicate that it is doing the job that he is set out to do? Because project number 9 might be 2 years away, for example, right? Like if we're talking about the breadth of consultations, et cetera. And maybe I'm even being too bullish. So how are you kind of navigating the comms and the choices of the first couple so that they create the broader story and point that you're trying to make?
Shovel ready. Shovel ready is the first thing. Have they already gone through their environmental assessment? What is the thing that's standing in the way? If it's just money that's standing in the way of this project, then that project gets done. If it's something like a pipeline that has to go across the nation with an environmental and First Nations consultation process, that's less good, much less good, because now that could be a 10-year project. What's the point of announcing a 10-year project? People want to see things get done right away. Shovel ready with the partnership of other levels of government is exactly what you're hoping for.
Shannon, what do you think? What is the definition of a political quick win here in your mind?
Sure. I'm not sure what shovel ready means. And there's all kinds of jokes on, people who have been on the receiving end of lobbying for large projects will tell you that like everything is shovel ready. And I can't tell you how many times I had heard that, and it's probably not real. But
everything is real when I say it's real, Shannon Phillips.
No.
Well, hold on. Before you get there, can you talk to me about your experience with that? Being on the other end of like being lobbied things that people say are shovel ready. Like, was it just like, would your team have to do due diligence on that?
Well,
like,
the GOA
how would that work?
I mean, the GOA would. But even for, flood mitigation, this kind of stuff, right, which, was funded out of my department, you get all kinds of representations from municipalities of, things are ready to go. They were demonstrably not ready to go. So, that stuff happens. It happens through all kind of government procurement infrastructure projects. I'm sure it happens to munis as well, right? right? They get the same kind of representations. And then you have private sector proponents for various projects who come in and say, oh, my factory widget making is going to employ, untold thousands of people and bring in untold millions of tax
Jobs
revenue
and
and what have you. And it's shovel ready, and it is also not. But that's fine. That happens all the time, right? Which is why that level of due diligence is really important. And if it is actually ready to go, then, or even if it's close, and this is where I given a bit of confidence that a guy who was, the chair of Brookfield, will have some sense on how projects are financed and managed. But I also think there needs to be there's got to be regional politics here to keep his friends on side. And so
I'm glad you said that. I'm surprised Carter didn't, but I'm glad you said that.
I mean, let's just look at the rank politics here. You gained a bunch of seats in British Columbia. And you've got a more tenuous coalition to hold together in British Columbia for the Liberal Party of Canada than you have elsewhere. You have to get back some of that more working class, blue collar vote in Southern Ontario. Okay. And you need to have an affordability pitch there. Maybe it's not a nation building project in Brampton. Maybe it's more housing there. But I'd also be doing some polling on what people are looking for in those areas. And you also have to hold together a Quebec coalition. And if you're going to go stomping through the environment, you're going to find PDQ that the BQ is going to start eating your lunch. Right. So you have to think about those regional dynamics. But I would say because of that, you're going to want to look at British Columbia and Southern Ontario as two spots where if you've got something, move it.
I want to get back to the regional politics in a second. And this is related. But, one of Shannon's comments, Carter, really kind of hit home for me in how much we're relying on the PM himself and his skill set to champion a lot of this shit. Like the fact that Shannon just brings up, oh, well, this is the guy who's got the Brookfield, experience. Like he'll be able to understand the financing on each project. It's like we're asking the prime minister of this country to bring those skills at a very, specific level of detail to be able to greenlight projects. Like we're not even talking about committees or task forces or departments. And the heart of my question is, how does Carney lead this without wearing all of the downside risk? We're almost pretending like there's none here. There's a lot, right? Shannon's mentioned at some point we'll get back onto the regular script where Moe and Smith will be disgruntled. Southern Ontario will be fickle, right? BC will go perhaps back to their more core environmental roots. Like things will reset. So how does Carney lead this without wearing this? Like, is there something he can do around ensuring the provinces are now responsible and he's the gatekeeper of finances? Or has he set this self up from a political perspective that it's him and only him?
Dude, you're describing risk and reward. You're describing risk and reward, and the risk is for Carney that he has to wear it. The reward is that Carney gets to wear it. If you want to have the bouquet placed around your neck as the champion of the world, as I often am, then you have to be willing to undertake the risk. If you're not willing to undertake the risk, then you're not going to get that reward. And I think that this is where Trudeau often found himself, playing in little tiny fields on little tiny issues because he was unwilling to take that risk. So for me, that's a benefit, not a negative. Yes, there is a risk attached to it. Yes, there is a reward attached to it. Which one of those is going to happen? I don't know. Feels like we're tracking towards reward, but we don't know. That's the beauty of politics. You have to choose to do what you think is right, and then you will get either rewarded or destroyed by it. I don't know if Shannon has any experience with the carbon tax or anything like that, but sometimes
I don't think she does stuff.
Sometimes you win, and other times you lose.
Absolutely. I mean, and he has set very, very high expectations. And that can be a very dangerous thing. And he's decided he's going to take the dangerous path. Because the other option is to keep running things like Trudeau did, which is sometimes it took them 4 or 5 years to get through a consultation process on something
Let
they
alone,
cared
yeah.
about, and that just made more opportunity for people to go to war on it. I'm thinking here of the emissions cap legislation, the electricity regs. These were the emissions cap in particular. I want to say it was 3 or 4 years of consult, right, from sort of idea to like not even execution, and so people did get tired of that at various levels, and not just on the in Alberta or on the so-called right or whatever the case may be. It took them a long time to do anything. I'm thinking here of like Long-Term Care Act, some of these things. I remember listening to a Liberal MP tell me privately, well, we just need more time so that we can do that. And I'm like, you promised it in the 2021 platform. And here we are in late 2024,
Yeah.
right? It just took them forever. That's just dithering around, talking in government-itis. People see through that. They don't like it. So he's going to take some chances. There are going to be failures on this. There will be the odd project that goes wildly off the rails. But Canadians also have a fairly high tolerance for that. TMX was originally budgeted at $8 billion. It came in at 34. If you were to go and do a poll tomorrow, I don't think you would find opposition to it in Alberta or British Columbia. Churchill Falls is another one, went billions of dollars over both projects, as far as I know. Like a massive overspend by the federal government. These things happen. And Canadians, if they see a benefit, do have an not only are they okay with it, they have an appetite for it. They're like, fine,
I want to stick with you, Shannon, on this. One of the reasons I'm sitting on a bed in Toronto in a hotel room is because I'm here for a board meeting for the Samara Center for Democracy. And one of my board colleagues asked this really interesting question to our fellow board members, and I want to phrase it here, which is, do you think, as a former minister yourself, having an understanding of the public service, so right sizes for the Ottawa, conversation, do you feel like the public service can keep up to his ambitions, or at least his rhetorical promises that he's put out? Let's say Carney wants to go quick. Let's say Carney finds premiers who want to go quick. Let's say Carney finds cabinet and a PMO that wants to go quick. The one aspect we haven't necessarily dug into is, can the public service actually allow him to go quick? Can they, and this is not to deride the public service in any way, but it's really to ask a question of, they're tooled to not in some ways. So how do you see that portion of it? If everything aligns, if the stars are aligning and it's kumbaya, as I've said 3 times today, with the premiers, and he's got a chief of staff, which he just announced today, well-regarded, celebrated chief of staff, people are like, great pick, right? If all that's going well, we rarely talk about this, but in this case, the public service. Can the public service allow him to go quick? Your thoughts?
They have to, or they will be restructured and moved. He is someone who has also worked in the public service in finance, and holds a quick and efficient public service, like, for example, at Whitehall in the United Kingdom, in high regard. So we'll see. There will be a level of tension there. There's no question, because to your point, Zain, as my Deputy Minister Eric Denhoff used to say, well, Minister, doing nothing is a perfectly legitimate public service response to whatever your query is. And that can pervade the civil service sometimes. He was being, he was telling a joke, but it had a kernel of reality.
Doing nothing as in getting out of your way, or doing nothing as in like,
as in, you would like some advice on what to do, and we're going to give you option A, which is to do nothing.
Right.
So, some of that is there. I think that is an open question, because Mr. Carney has also indicated a significant operational budget review. And identifying some savings of, $28 billion. That is significant. So there will be some tension there. But this will be the summer when they are not going to Muskoka. And it is time for them to demonstrate their work, I think.
Carter, can the public service keep up?
Yeah.
Can Ottawa establishment keep up?
Yeah, you're not going to move the entire public service at the same time. either. You're going to move certain areas a lot. So, as you move through your infrastructures, your transportations, those departments are going to get hammered, as is finance. But not every department's, not every department's going to be moving at the same pace. And that enables you to move some bureaucrats around as people succeed or fail in the environment. I remember, when as chief of staff, we would have different moments when different deputies would have to step up. And that was just
what government was that, Carter?
We're not doing the counter today.
It was fathers against what? Fathers against.
I'm not talking to either of you guys anymore.
Both
of you two are on my. Both of you two have gone too far. Gone too far. I'm done.
She turned out to be a great premier. That's all I'll say.
I will kick your ass later.
I loved those 15 minutes. Carter,
it was 6 whole months.
That was good.
Job well done. Mm-hmm. Anyway, moving on.
Shannon, which province, which region, which group is kind of at the greatest risk right now? Like when you look at the board, we're still sticking with the nation building project stuff, right? That's been the key. Like, is there someone that you're like, I don't like their position that they've either are going to be forced in or they have to go along to get along. I don't like where they stood on certain things. So I'm asking it in a broader sense, not to guide you to an answer, but in certain things, if you're playing a finite game, and this you could say is a finite game, we just, with rolling admissions, we don't know when that will look like. But who's like kind of looking a bit shaky already? Who's going to be, in a position where you're not necessarily keen to be them right now?
We can do a bit of process of elimination. The Atlantic Canadian premiers are in very good shape with because a lot of what they are looking for is electricity infrastructure. So that they were all very, very happy today when I watched their interviews, and for good reason. And certainly they do need some export diversification. And again, the types of investments that Mr. Carney is looking at making and what they actually need, it actually aligns pretty well. If you move across, Doug Ford, it's Ontario. They're going to get with their amazing things. Quebec might be in a bit of a spot, right? Because there's tension. Obviously, there will be tension. And Mr. Legault is going into an election within whatever it is, a year and a half. So there's that it might, not exactly go along the track that people want it to. Wob is obviously, Premier Jesus. He's fine. He's in good shape. And Scott Moe will do whatever Danielle does because he just, is kind of slipstreaming behind her, and he's just hoping that he doesn't get thrown overboard.
Does he remind anybody else of the Scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz, or is that just me? If he only had a brain. Is it just...
Jesus Christ, Carter.
What? Look, I'm just asking a question.
I wasn't sure where you were going until you went right for the fucking temples, but okay.
Yeah. And then, I think the most vulnerable of anyone, the guy in the Yukon is going into an election. So, he's going to have to, he's going to have to show some movement there. And Mr. Eby is probably on the most knife's edge. As soon as Danielle Smith starts talking about Northern Gateway, oh boy, does that start inflicting, starting to, push into an old bruise for the BC NDP, for the province. And they've just gone through their own fast track legislation conversation. They had to go back and rewrite a little bit on it. I think they mostly got through it because the government's really quite popular right now, far more popular than when they won the election in barely in October. But Gateway can revive the Green Party that had pretty much, there had been, they'd pretty much disappeared. So it can. The good news is, at least for Eby right now, number one, he is extremely popular right now, and the government's approach to the response to Trump is really popular. Even the fast track legislation doesn't appear to have really rattled them too much. It maybe rattled their internal coalition a little bit, but it hasn't rattled their numbers. And obviously their opposition is in total disarray. So, that situation's not going to change anytime soon, but his internal coalition dynamics are going to become much more difficult if that's the project that Danielle Smith keeps putting in the window every 2 minutes, which is why I also said there has to be something in the first instance from Carney. Maybe it's LNG related, maybe it's some other energy related project that he can basically say, we're doing this.
To offset Carney, to offset,
exactly.
yeah, for EB. That's smart. I like that. Carter, do you agree with Shannon's assessment, or do you kind of have a different take around who's not in the greatest position right now, at least from a regional lens?
I mean, Shannon's learned. She's smart. She has wonderfully formed opinions, but she's just wrong. Danielle Smith is the one who's probably in the most difficult because she's built herself into a box. She's the one she and Scott Moe, her friend, the Scarecrow. I mean, basically what we have is the Tin Man and the Scarecrow running down trying to find the Wizard of Oz and kill him. Wizard of Oz in this story is Mark Carney. So if you're Mark Carney, how much do you want? I mean, sure, you're going to talk about turning Canada into an energy superpower. You're going to say all the right words, but what are you actually going to do that? One of the things that is the hardest to understand in this environment is we are already sending out more oil than we ever have. We are selling more oil than we ever have. We are sending it out to markets that we never sent to before. We are doing the things that we want to do, and we're still bitching. So what exactly is it that Mark Carney's going to do? Turn the taps up a little bit more on the oil sands? Really push the in situ? There are no new projects planned, right? There's nothing on, you talk about shovel ready. There's nothing shovel ready here, except maybe turning the taps up just a little bit.
And CCUS. There is that, right? If there is a final investment decision, then that's a lot of...
Did you just acronym me?
Sorry.
Acronym me?
FMM? Did you heard
FFM?
of FMM?
MFM? Yeah.
Yeah.
CCUS? The carbon capture.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm in. We're
if it ever
carbon
happens.
capture. Let's do it.
But the reason why I glossed over Moe and Smith is because whatever happens, they win. Right? If things move forward, okay, great. It's because we fought for our provinces. If things don't move forward, or if things do, they will just move the goalpost to something else for the endless grievance train, right? And if it's okay, we've got pipeline stuff happening, well, then I'm going to turn my attention to the industrial carbon price. I'm going to turn my attention to some other thing, the equalization formula. Again, I don't see a situation in which that disadvantages her. Because at some point there will be disagreement with Carney and she will be happy.
You're right. It's only the people of Alberta who will be disadvantaged. My bad. My mistake.
The public interest
I'd like to
takes a bit of a
apologize to Shannon Phillips. I was wrong and she was right.
She was thinking too connivingly and too Machiavellian. And Carter, you, as always, just save the public. You always are about the people.
I'm always about the people.
I appreciate that.
Earnestness. You know what? I bring earnestness to this show.
You too. That's what I sense. I used to bring earnestness to the show. Now I just bring...
I don't know what you bring anymore.
I'm late. I'm unprepared. I don't have a mic.
Oh, what a disaster.
Let's move it on to our over-under in our lightning round. Stephen Carter, we do this for you despite the fact that you really don't seem to enjoy it. You really don't seem to appreciate it.
I love this. This is my favorite part.
Carter, tell me this. One major risk. Outline it for me. Strategic political risk for Mark Carney between now, as we record June 2nd, and July 1st. July 1st is a big date on the Carney calendar that he's circled. We've had a nearly hour-long conversation about the nation-building projects. It doesn't have to be about that. But give me one key Carney risk that you could whisper into his ear and be like, make sure about this, sir, between now and July 1.
That he's unable to bring one project to the table that we can get started on.
You think he needs one before July 1?
I think he needs to be able to point to something and say, we're going to do that. That is the thing that we need to do, and we're going to do that thing before July 1. Because because there's no point doing it in July and August. And by September, he will have lost his momentum.
Shannon, July 1, Mark Carney, what's a risk between now and then?
Big Indigenous protests start, either out of British Columbia or another place where, or what Ontario is doing up in with their legislation having to do with the Ring of Fire erupts, at Queen's Park, and there's a spillover effect into, onto the lawn of Parliament. There's a big AFN push of some kind, right? They've already been a little bit
on the heels of a project being selected?
No, or just in
to
general.
prevent?
No, just in general.
Yeah, just in general.
Because we've already seen some nervousness and some trepidation. So if you start to see some of those pieces move, even within the next 2 or 3 weeks, that is a huge risk.
Shannon, let's stick with you for this next one. Risk for Pierre and the Conservatives between now and that same time period, now and July 1st. Obviously, their opposition. Carter says they need to give it some time. He said that time is Thursday, so I'm going to extend the clock. Between now and July 1, what's a risk for the Conservatives?
Internal problems, because they can always, if their high water mark was 41 on election day, depending how things, settle out over the next 2 or 3 years, that might be enough for a majority. So the actual public support right now is a lot less important than people starting to snipe at each other. So the internal caucus and party dynamics are the most important thing for Mr. Poilievre.
Carter, risk between now and July 1?
Well, I mean, again, Shannon's completely wrong. I mean, it is the internal party dynamics that are probably the most important thing.
Oh, I'm so glad we do this for you, especially when you pay so much attention. Stephen Carter, let me end here. Let me start with you on this final question. Overrated or underrated the selection of the first project? What it is? Is that overrated or underrated in the grand political scheme of things in your mind?
I think it's underrated. I think that this thing has the chance of being a real political win or a real political burden. Whatever you choose to come out of the gates with, if it is a reasonable sized project that gets people excited, this could be defining of the government. And it could be defining of the government the other way if it doesn't capture people's attention. It can turn into a white elephant very, very quickly.
Does that perfect project, mid-sized, exciting, shows progress, does this unicorn of a project that's shovel-ready, that has already met thresholds on consultation? I'm just giving you random shit, but you know what I'm trying to say. Does this unicorn project exist in your mind?
High-speed rail. I'm telling you, people will love it.
Shit.
Oh, it's overrated.
Underrated? Overrated or underrated, the first project choice?
Overrated, because it's not going to happen as one. There will be either more than one, or there will be a process of some kind, right? Here's the criteria, and here's who meets these criteria, and then we'll go on to other criteria, or some other staging of it. I just don't think they're going to be here's one thing, haha. Not going to happen.
My God, it's just so wrong. Just so wrong. This is the Shannon was wrong episode. Shannon was wrong.
I could be wrong.
I'm just testing it out, seeing if it works as well as it did with Corey. It doesn't seem to be working as well.
Yeah, no, it's not being received well by her, and there's a bit of me inside that's dying while you do it. So
I'm okay with it, and here's why. It's always important to admit that you're wrong in this business.
No, but he actually doesn't mean you're wrong. That's what. Yeah, okay, never mind.
I know. I'm being earnest.
Oh, I like the earnestness.
That's good. Nice. It's good. We're going to leave it there. That's a wrap on episode 1873 of The Strategist. My name is Zain Velji. With me, as always, Shannon Phillips, Stephen Carter, and we shall see you next time.